I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Variance Commission.
This conference will now be recorded.
May 6, 2022, 5:30 p.m. Before I go into the Pledge of Allegiance, I want to welcome our newest member, Mr. Nell Roll, to our Planning and Zoning Board. And I want to welcome everybody out there for being in attendance. And from there, we'll stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America, and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Armijo? Coker?
Here.
Matarano?
Here.
Norris?
Here.
Spain?
Here.
Morello?
Here.
Leone?
Here. Public comments? Okay. Approval of minutes, April 13th, 2022 meeting. Also move. Evans. Do I have a second?
I have a question regarding those minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it was during those minutes that I don't think that this board should be voting on its own members. And that's where it went down in those minutes, so should I address that now, or are we going to address that additionally at a different point? When would be the point to do? I feel that the procedure that we, if there's a procedure to pick members in the future, it's a very dangerous precedent to have a quasi-judicial board vote on its own members. That makes it more of a popularity contest, and it negates and undermines the impunity we have from litigation. I mean, if we don't follow procedures that are transparent, then we open ourselves up and the city up to being sued. So that's not a good situation for the board member, new board members to be amended, and as we go forward, I just would like that to go down in the record.
We'll bring that forward and put it down as the staff has brought forward.
Okay, thank you.
Approval of minutes. I have a first and a second.
Armijo? Yes. Coker?
Yes.
Matarano?
Yes.
Norris?
I'll abstain because I don't agree with him.
Spain?
Yes.
Morello?
Abstain.
Leone?
Yes. Okay, moving on to new business. Citizens petition renaming the North Lake Dam to the James A. Fernandez Dam. Before I go on with that, I know we have some people here tonight who would like to talk about it. I would like to say, I have a few minutes I would like to bring forward. Mr. Fernandez was a very dedicated person, no matter what he did, in his job to his employees. Having worked for the city as a superintendent of utilities for 42 years, Jim is very much responsible for the development of water, gas, and sewer utilities that exist today. Some of the projects undertook during his tenure included a $6.64 million wastewater treatment plant expansion, replacement of all valves at the Monument Lake Dam, installation of the new Allendale water storage tank, upgrade of the water line to Pino Canyon maneuver site, construction of new gas and water warehouse buildings, provided for water, gas, and sewer to exit 11 to allow the commercial development, Linden Avenue Bridge project, and the Elm Street high-low pressure gas main from Linden Avenue to Chestnut Street. I'm privileged to talk about this man, which I just did, and I'm privileged to have known him. And that's what I have to say. Moving on. Okay, citizens petition. Come on.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. The four of us, not as city employees but as citizens, represent the petition committee that circulated petitions to seek the renaming of the North Lake Dam to the James A. Fernandez North Lake Dam. My name is Audrey Garrett.
I'm Linda Vigil.
Steve Carell.
Mark Veal.
And we too had the privilege of working with Jim Fernandez for a number of years during our individual tenures here. He obviously was here before we came in. What the Planning Commission is charged with is looking at general principles and guidelines for your consideration, and it's through questions in the policy. So the first question is, will the name have historical, cultural, or social significance for generations to come? Our response is yes. Even if people did not know Mr. Fernandez, his work for this community was significant and will be for future generations.
The second question is, will the name engender a strong and positive image? The name change of North Lake Dam to the James A. Fernandez North Lake Dam will engender a strong and positive image to me and to all the people who have known, worked with him and for him. Anyone who had the pleasure of knowing him knows what an intelligent, kind, and generous man that he was. He was always truly dedicated to what he did to Trinidad and the surrounding community.
Next question is, will the name memorialize or commemorate people, places, or events that are of enduring importance to the community or the nation? The answer is Mr. Fernandez is of an enduring importance to the community and to the nation. He was a Vietnam veteran. He returned to Trinidad and gave his heart to this community in so many ways.
The next question is, will the name engender significant ties of friendship and mutual recognition and support within the community or with those outside of the community? Jim was everyone's friend, and he would be the first to recognize others before himself. The next question was, will the name be identified with some major achievement or the advancement of the public good within the community? The name will recognize the individual responsible for ensuring the advancement of the public good within the community by his work to preserve and protect the city's water resources.
Next question will be, will the name be particularly suitable for the public building, park, or facility based upon its location of history? The North Lake Dam project was what Mr. Fernandez deemed to be his greatest achievement.
The last question, will the name have a symbolic value that transcends in its ordinary meaning or use and enhances the character and identify of the public building, park, or public facility? North Lake Dam versus the James A. Fernandez North Lake Dam. The name change will have a symbolic value, and it will cause the average citizen to inquire why the dam was named after this individual. It will personalize the city's asset by naming it to honor such a wonderful person who took so much pride in his work by always striving to make a difference for future generations of this community.
Okay, so the category under which this petition was submitted was exceptional individuals, which is meant to recognize an exceptional individual that has been influential in the cultural, political, economic, or social life of the city. And so under that category for consideration is your guidelines to consider. So the timing of this petition is suitable according to the policy because it's after the individual is deceased, and the individual's significance and good reputation have been secured in the history and lore of the city. Unfortunately, we lost Jim recently. This is the second time this request has been made. The first was prior to his passing. The Planning Commission accordingly could not recommend it at that time because he was still alive.
Yes, a few of the
Okay, priority, significant and enduring contributions to the state, to the city, protection of the community's utilities ultimately serves the state's public interest.
Let me go back one.
Right.
So The first priority that the commission is to consider is the significant and enduring contributions to the city. And so, Mark will lead that one.
Yeah, I did a few here. The first was, he installed our first SCADA system in approximately 1989, which is responsible for keeping our water storage tanks full for water consumption and fire flow. You know, that was one of the first in our system that was fully automated. The second, Jim worked very diligent about ensuring the city had ample water rights, and he was very protective with them. He always made sure that the city was set up in the future for water rights and to make sure we would have those for our offspring and children and make sure they were always protected. So that's two things I like to recognize Jim for.
Yeah, I'd like to recognize Jim for, he was real into the development of our operations and maintenance manual for the natural gas department. Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, back in the early 90s, deemed that we had to have an operations and maintenance manual. And Jim sat back and developed that whole thing by himself. So that took a lot of work and a lot of effort on his part and got us into safety regulations at that one. The other one was he had foresight to get us gas storage. So when we purchased gas, we actually purchased some storage. A lot of other cities don't have that. That saves us a lot of money, saves the citizens a lot of money during the year. Last year we had in February what they deemed as the extreme weather event. It was for 5 days in February when pretty much the whole nation went under a freeze. And by us having that storage, it actually saved the city millions of dollars. There was other cities that had to pass that through their customers, and it went through a long thing, and the gas rates went up about 28% at that time. So we were fortunate at that time our rates didn't go up and increase at all. We had that storage. So thanks for Mr. Fernandez on that he did a wonderful job for foreseeing that.
As it was mentioned earlier, Jim worked for the city for 42 years. I'm not quite sure what year he became the utility superintendent. He was actually the person that hired me when I got here, so he oversaw the gas and water and sewer utilities. He always ensured that we maintained compliance with state and federal regulations when it came to each of those. As the years got by, the regulations started becoming more stringent, so it got crazy, but he always made sure that we stayed in compliance. Jim had many projects that he worked on, but one of his biggest projects was the North Lake Dam stabilization project. He actually, he and I worked with the Colorado Water Conservation Board to secure grant money for that project. And I was trying to find the exact amount, but it was under $800,000 that we had secured. And Jim and I actually went up to Denver, and we received, when we got notified that the city was going to be a recipient of that grant. So he was really excited. The North Lake Dam was definitely one of his biggest projects. He had many, many, many projects, but that was one of his biggest ones that he was very proud of.
So this next priority of significant and enduring contributions is?
To the state, and it was the protection of this community's utilities ultimately serves the state's public interest. And again, he kept us in compliance with all the state regulations through his years, which we did very well.
The third was concerning the nation. Jim served our country in the United States Army and served during the Vietnam War for 2 years as a radio operator in a helicopter unit.
And last is the world. I know that many of us here in this room had the privilege of knowing Jim, mostly because we worked with him, but Jim will always be known more than just a boss or a coworker. He was a one-of-a-kind man with a gentle yet stern disposition, He will always be remembered for his integrity and dedication to the citizens of the city of Trinidad. James A. Fernandez, aka Jim, made the world a better place to live or be in. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our presentation. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, at this time here, I'd like to have somebody out of the audience. If you want to come up and talk, you're welcome to come up and talk. We ain't going to give you 15 minutes.
I don't think I'll
State your name.
My name is James A. Fernandez. Jim was my uncle, and I'm very proud to say that I'm named after him. Firstly, I would really sincerely like to thank all of you who made this happen and started this process. It's from the bottom of my heart, and as a representative of the Fernandez family, thank you. It really means more than you know. Mr. Leone, thank you for the kind words as well. We collectively appreciate that very, very much. They pretty much said everything that I was going to say. His dedication to this city, it was uncomparable. It wasn't just a 9-to-5 job, it was a 24/7 job. The city wasn't just part of his career, it was a part of his family, and it was a part of his life. Nights, weekends, it wasn't a 9-to-5 thing for him. I think that was pretty evident in his collection of accomplishments. So thank you for your consideration, and again, I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and thank you guys again, and thanks for letting me come up here and speak. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody up here want to?
I would like to say a few things about Mr. Fernandez.
Go ahead, Mr. Monroe.
Jim is a personal friend of mine. I've known him many, many years. I've known his father. But the things that I admired him mostly for, and all what you guys said is wonderful, but what he really did when he dealt with plumbers and when he dealt with public was amazing. He was able to sit back and dictate the policy and tell them this is the way it is. I wish I could do different. And then when he dealt with council, he didn't tell them what they wanted to hear. He told them what they had to hear, which was amazing. And they followed toe and nail to everything that he said because he knew what he was talking about. It was an amazing man that took on a job, but it was a heart thing. It was something that he loved to do, and he took care of that. And the way he handled the public was just amazing. I worked with the guy, I dealt with the guy. He and his wife used to come down and eat in my restaurant, and we'd sit there and talk about the old times, and I'll tell you what, he was just an amazing man.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. John? Mr. Speen?
I have nothing.
Mr. Coker?
Well, I gotta meet him years ago. When I first came to Trinidad, I did have, excuse me, an opportunity to kind of work with them. If memory serves me correct, it's when City Gas Department and those buildings were kind of being built, because that was about the time when he was retiring, if I remember correctly. But I feel, maybe I'm a little off, but I remember getting to work with the gentleman. I didn't get to know him a lot, but I got to work with him, and at that time he had a very kind heart. He was stern. Some of the words that you guys said was just amazing, because again, I didn't know him for a very long time, but all the key points that you guys said on that paperwork was to the T. So it was an honor. So that's where I'll leave that.
Ms. Janelle Rollo?
Well, I knew him on a personal level. Wonderful man, kind. I've known the family forever. They're all good people, very committed to the community.
Coming back to me, I have just one word. I think it sums it up everything. Whatever you guys said out there, that's 100%. The one word I have is dedication.
Yep.
That's what he had. Solid dedication. Whether it was to his employees, to the city of Trinidad, to his family, to anybody, it was dedication. Now, dedication is what counts. Sometimes in today's world, there ain't that. But in his world, it was definitely dedication. That's all I have to say. Okay, gentlemen,
Excuse me.
go ahead.
Mr. Hernandez sounds like a wonderful individual. I did not get the opportunity to meet him, and I'm sorry for that. Setting a procedure here, we are setting a procedure here. We've got 43 signatures on a petition, and so we're setting the baseline bar. Now, granted, I hear from the testimonial that it would be probably fairly simple to get a lot more signatures, but we are setting a precedence for this, and could we discuss it, step aside from our how close we feel to this individual at this time, and just look at rename, let's say somebody wanted to rename Semino Park. Okay, I can do that with 43 signatures?
So, Mr.
That's kind
Norris,
of split.
our policy requires 100 signatures from citizens of the city of Trinidad, and we gathered in excess of that. I don't know if the entire petition didn't get scanned, or if you just saw one section of it.
43 were in the documentation that was provided to us.
No,
You didn't receive all of them?
no, we got them all.
You did get them all?
Yes, I did.
Did the rest of you get them all?
Yes.
The balance of the
You
board
read the first
received all
page?
of them.
Mr. Norris, you read the first page of them, but there was several pages after that had a number of signatures on.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were collected in sections, so there were 4 petition sections, and each of them had a total count on the top page. So we met
Okay,
the
so
requirement.
our baseline after this is 100 signatures?
Yes, and that's by our city policy.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry, for the 100 is still not very many for renaming of a structure. That's just something to note. I mean, I agree with this one that's going through, but we are setting a precedent for, how many signatures have to be set. So anyway.
Moving on, I'm going to intervene right here. We've done several of these, Mr. Norris. You weren't part of the board at that time, but we've done a lot of these.
Okay.
We've changed names of streets, and this ain't the first time.
Okay.
Moving on. Have a motion.
I'll move that we go ahead and approve renaming the my favorite lake to Jim Fernandez. I love it. I go up there and fish all the time. I'll talk to him all the time.
So your recommendation is renaming the North Lake Dam to the James A. Fernandez Dam. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Roll call.
Armijo,
Yes.
Coker,
Yes.
Materano,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Spain,
Yes.
Rollo,
Yes.
Leone.
Yes.
Thank you for your time and your
I thank everybody for coming here today. And I thank you for taking the time to do what you did, along with what you do every day. Sometimes that ain't appreciated. Me personally, I'm just talking for me personally, I do appreciate it. What you guys did and still doing your job for the city of Trinidad. Thank you.
One last comment. The first time that this renaming was proposed, I said this was the second time this commission has heard this request. First time was through Councilwoman Carol Bolton, when she was on city council, I believe, and she was obviously very disappointed when that one didn't get approved. And I know even past that time, she had made comments that, she wanted to still have that recognition for Mr. Fernandez. Secondly, Councilmember Frank Hsu was very responsible for keeping this on the radar to make sure that we followed through with this in honor of Jim Fernandez. So I wanted to recognize him as well.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Thank you, guys. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Public hearings, any? None?
No, sir.
Reports? Commissioners' reports, I have none. Other than I think all of us up here and some of the people here that haven't been here for a long time, that were newer people, maybe 10, 12 years, and didn't get to know Mr. Fernandez, you missed out on a hell of a man. That's where I'm going to leave it. That's a report I have. I have no reports.
The only thing-
Commissioner reports.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Thank you. No, perfect. No, that's what I need.
Commissioners reports.
Good.
None? Mr. Spain?
I'd like to say, to have people stand in the room and say the things that we've heard about a coworker tonight is pretty special. I'm very impressed. And, you know, I want to give the city its props for recognizing the service that their worker gave and offering him the opportunity to be memorialized in this way. I think that it's just a truly amazing deal that we've sat through tonight. It's very cool. Thank y'all for letting me be part of it.
Mr. Norris?
Yes. With this, we could discuss a procedural amendment for selecting new members, or just discuss it.
That's not on the agenda tonight.
Okay, can we put it on the agenda for next week?
Next meeting.
Next meeting, that's what I mean.
Can do that.
You can do that. Planning Director's report. Chris, you have anything?
I don't have anything.
Don't have anything? Have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Second.
Second. Roll call.
Armijo?
Yes.
Coker?
Yep.
Monterano?
Yes.
Norris?
Yes.
Spain?
Yes.
Rollo?
Yes.
Leone?
Yes. Okay, that's the meeting's adjourned, and now we're going to go into a work session. So I'll open up the work session, and the time of the work session is 5:57, Tuesday, May 10th. The work session and is, I think Mr. Spain would like, I'm going to let him start off. I just want to let everybody know, during this work session, we can have a work session. We can't make any recommendations to the city after whatever we decide, whatever we talk about tonight, whether it be the consumption club's ADU, development review, or whatever. This is just strictly a work session. So I just want all the members to know up here. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The reason why I brought this up is it seems like we were able a few years ago to catch on with what the next new thing was going to be. And at that time it was the legalization of the cannabis industry. So Trinidad was fortunate enough to have some people, our leaders, that were able to see that that was the next new thing and that Trinidad needed something to bring it back. So they had enough foresight to catch on and to make it to where our city actually could benefit quite a bit through these new laws and this new thing. Well, that time has passed, or is passing. It's a fact. As the rest of the world becomes more legal and more continues to go on, what we've experienced will thin out. And that's why I think that the cannabis clubs, the ADUs, all of this needs to be discussed, is because it's up to us to find out what is the next thing. You know, what is going to keep our business alive and continue us to keep growing. If it's not the consumption clubs, then what is it? That's what I'm saying. Where are we heading as a city? If it's tourism, you know, then we need to increase the things that draw tourists to our town, like fishing tournaments out in our lake, something along that way. Either way it is, if we continue inaction, then we are certain that nothing will happen. And you know, Trinidad is just a beautiful city. Its growth that they've seen over the last 7-8 years is just amazing. All the buildings that have been reflourished and the revival of the town. I for one don't want to see that go. I want to catch on to whatever it is that next new thing that will allow us to continue the path that we want as a city. But, you know, allow us to continue comfortably, because we have to admit the cannabis industry has been very well to our city. That's just the reason why I brought these things up, is because, you know, this is our job as planning to try to figure out where it is that we're going next, and to open our city up to where that can happen. Now, as far as the consumption clubs goes, I really believe that we could divide that up into groups that would allow us some freedoms here and there, and give something back to the cannabis industry that has given so much to our community. You know, a tent downtown at these festivals is what we're talking about. You know, we've been told to regulate the cannabis the same way as alcohol. Well, at these festivals and these concerts, people can walk around with alcohol. You know, we need to take our town where it's going. That's all I got.
I don't have.
John? Should go.
I can agree with, you know, some of your statement. It is definitely in our best interest to possibly think outside the box. You know, it's true. The cannabis industry is dropping, and that's fine by me. We need to find a way to keep them tourists coming here. You know, we do have the state parks. We do have things happening.
Brand new one.
Yeah. You know, we have things that we can definitely promote.
Right.
You know, we have a great lake. We have all our lakes around here. There's plenty of outdoorsy stuff, but that's only going to take us through our summer months. Not everybody is. What do you call it? Summer bunny? But, you know, what about our winter times? You know, I'm all about thinking outside the box and finding a different way or finding ways to promote our town. I don't know about the consumption thing. I think for me, that's a touchy, it's a touchy subject. I know it's here, it's in our face. You know, I get it. Liquor has been around our realm forever. So is that, but it hasn't been legal. It is now, and I realize that. But am I ready to let, you know, when I'm down at the festival and I've got my boys, I know it's legal. I get all that, but I don't know if me personally, if I'm ready for my kids to walk by that. You know, I just don't know. Now that's a personal thing. You know, and I get
there was
that.
a tent that was roped off, you know, to where that was just their spot, you know.
But I wonder how that would be. I wonder how that would be looked at, because, you know, when you think about dispensaries and whatnot, right? So they got to have all these things for odor mitigation, right?
Right.
Now, whether they work or they don't work, that's not for us to judge. We know that it has to be done.
Right.
So when we're out in that kind of situation, when we're going to be on a city block with everybody else, how would that come into play? I think that, for me, that's the first thing that comes up, because at a dispensary, at a grow, it's all about odor mitigation. Now we're going to stick it, you know, if we stick a tent downtown, you know, what's going to control that odor? There's not any control. And I understand that we're saying that we got to think about this you know, we got to start looking at it kind of like we look at alcohol, right? And I can agree with that. But there's other rules. There's nothing about odor mitigation with alcohol, you know, and I'm just saying this is just my thoughts. That's all it is. It's just my thoughts. I just believe things like that can come up from the general public.
I agree.
You know. So I'm not saying that I'm not for it, or I'm not saying I'm against it, but I do think there's going to be policies that would have to probably come into play, because if we have policies that are restricting certain things in the industry, how are we going to put it out there on the street that's going to provide the same?
If that's exactly the case, marijuana is regulated differently at the state level. I don't believe you're allowed to smoke it in public. And where you can get liquor permits, and I'm not against the rule, to be honest with you, where you can get a liquor permit and have a tent, that's perfectly legal. I don't know if that exists in the marijuana world.
Yeah.
What about the 420 festival that they did in the park down in Denver?
I think they turn a blind eye. That's what I really think happens there.
Well, I mean, that's all I'm not even saying to turn a blind eye.
Can we let Mr. Coker finish and then?
No, I think, you know, that pretty much sums up what I think. You know, at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing that's going to come to my mind is odor mitigation. It's in your face right now. You know, that's if we're going to have rules and regulations that set forth for whether that be a grow facility, whether that be a dispensary, you know, that it's got to fall in that kind of that category's there. It's odor. It's what some people, how is it written, might find offensive.
Right.
Right.
And how many people is it going to turn away as opposed to bring in? Because a lot of people are against be around it.
You know, I believe that this is actually being very productive, because the first step of this is actually to write the rules, because the fact of the matter is whenever this goes federal, our chance to write any rules and have any impact is gone. If it does go federal, they're going to do what they want to, how they want. This is our chance now to say, you know, the tent's got to be enclosed, got to have 4 walls, got to have an exhaust system on it. You know, this is where we can step up and we can do our planning part and send this up to city and say, you know, hey, let's divide this out and let's see.
Okay. First of all, Chris, we can't send anything to the city right now.
Right. I mean later.
Right. This is a discussion only.
Right.
Mr. Coker, you done?
Yes, sir.
Then you've been around. I mean, you're new on the board, but you've been here
Hot seat.
for a number of years.
A couple things came to mind when you were talking about, you know, when the marijuana industry is naturally going to probably go down because of federal, right, or other states. And I get that, and I think it's important the tax dollars coming into Trinidad. But I'm trying to figure out, as a new person, what role does economic development play in bringing industry, right? Is that the role of our commission to try to figure out how to fill that void? I don't know. I'm asking the question honestly. I feel like we should have an economic development director or department that looks for that industry to bring in.
Right.
And
That's correct.
so I think that's important. So I see it as kind of two things as you were talking. And then as far as consumption clubs go, personally, I'm not for it, but I see your point and I see what he said. I think, has anyone done it anywhere else in the state?
I don't believe so yet.
So I think that's kind of opening up a whole can of worms, a big can of worms. But I'm open to learning and seeing
So
what
then,
can happen.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mr. Norris?
Okay, so right now I just Googled it. I haven't grew up on consumption clubs, but apparently there's at least 6 in Denver. In my opinion, this would be a tremendous economic boon for the city. We've discussed. I mean, you guys just nailed all the requirements of what it would entail in implementation. You know, you would have to. We know how to regulate odors, economic development and areas of development would be a concern as well, but, I mean, you talk about a shot in the arm, right now, the amount of money coming into the school district from the marijuana money I think that's their top revenue source right now. So that's a tremendous amount of money, and right now we're talking about the school district talking about closing an elementary school. I think an infusion of cash could be a very good thing. So looking at it in a way so that it kind of happens, it will keep the tourists in town longer. You know, right now they come in, they buy it, and they leave. And if they came here and they consumed it, then they would have to go to a restaurant. They would have to go, they would have to spend money, maybe spend the night. I think it's a tremendous economic boom that we would be, it would be a tremendous value to the city. We ought to look into it.
All right. Are you done, Mr. Norris, or are you finished?
Sure, I can be done.
I'm going to let anybody come back with a rebuttal here in just a little bit, but what I'd like to say is, what effect is it going to have on the law enforcement? How are they going to do that down there? And what is it going to take down there if supposedly that we did do this, or supposedly that we have to come up with some kind of, we just can't jump into it. You have to come up with some kind of rules. Mm-hmm. And if you jump into it, then you find yourself with open subjects.
Right, exactly, loopholes.
And we're not up here we're up here for discussion only, right at this time. And I asked, when this came up, and Chris had it down, I went and seen people at City Hall. And they said, you can bring it up and you can talk about it, whatever you want, but you'll just be talking about it. Eventually, if City Council decides, it's going to come before you. It's going to come here. That's
Right.
where it's going to come. So my thought was, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the new state park, Trinidad Lake, Monument Lake, North Lake, and then I got to thinking about the law enforcement part of it. What's going to happen there if you're going to have these? How are they going to be able to do this? And also, I also thought of the mitigation. I think mitigation will be one of the main things. That's what I have to say as far as this goes. And Chris, you want to come? You're the one that brought it up here. If you want to say anything else, and anybody else up here, I'm open to this. So that if you want to continue saying what you're discussing, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
Thank you. I thought that Mr. Norris brought up good points. So what about if we looked at the city tax dollars as a big apple pie, and let's just say that about $30 million or so comes from this industry. Could the city afford to lose half of that next year?
But, I'd hate to see something motivated by money.
No, I'm not saying the motivation is purely money, but what I'm saying is realistically, the city has to continue to move forward. We have to have funds to do that, and if next year we lost half of our money, could we still move forward the way that we want to as a city? Because that's what we're facing. That's all I got.
Mr. Marlowe?
No, I can't point now.
Go ahead. Go.
So we're already seeing, a decline.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very plausible that even at this state and time, that in the direction that it's going, we could see that get cut in half.
Exactly.
So do I think, again, I agree. I don't want things to be, it's kind of a hard statement in a way, because marijuana, you know, the money thing, that's part of what drives what happened in this world, right? We know that. But I don't want, if we are going to see a decline in what's here, we're seeing a 60%. I think that's what the word is. We're already seeing a 60% decline. You can see it when you're driving down the street. I always drive down Commercial Street. It ain't like it used to be. Now, granted, school's not out. Things haven't changed. We haven't quite hit that summertime yet. So are we going to see a climb? Maybe a little bit, but I think with everything that's going on around us, I don't think we're going to see a spike. I think if anything, it's just going to flatten out. But we're going to know that here in time. As far as the clubs, I don't know if that's going to be a money generator. Tax-wise, a little bit. You can open up a new business. I don't know how that would be taxed. You know, it's going to be a consumption club. You're not going to be able to consumption clubs, because if memory serves me correct, yes, there are some in Denver. There were some in Springs, but how there wasn't no like fine rules on how they were regulated, so they died as fast as they came about. You know, if memory serves me correct, this building right over here was a consumption club for a very short period of time, and it did not last very long. So I don't think I don't see that's how it's going to be a driver for funding. Because my opinion is, Mr. Norris, on what you said,
Okay.
I just lost my thoughts. Gosh.
But, you know, I really think that, I know New Mexico started up, and I've been talking to some of the people coming in my restaurant that own shops here, okay, and they're not really worried about New Mexico. They're not worried about Texas getting it. They're not worried about their problem is because everybody else is like New Mexico is governed by the state. It's not governed by the city.
Right.
Okay, and that's the way they do their alcohol, and it hasn't been a good thing for them.
Right.
Okay, the price of their marijuana is like double what it is here. Okay, so it's not going to stop them from coming here if they want to come here. But I'll tell you what is going to stop them is the fuel charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's going to that's what's going to stop them. And
46.
so it's. I believe that if because one guy was telling me, it's just the price that we have on grows, the taxes, and the taxes that we're giving are so much less than New Mexico, so they're able to provide marijuana at a very lower price than they are any place else around us. So I don't think we're going to lose as much as everybody thinks we're going to lose, and I don't think that's the reason. I don't think because New Mexico's got it is the reason why we have a decline. I think I have a decline in my restaurant. Okay, I think it's just a trend that we're going through. I don't think it has anything to do with not doing our job.
Rising prices, everything's on the rise,
Right.
and nobody can.
Whenever you get over $5 a gallon for gas,
Inflation.
I mean, it's going to stop everybody.
I agree with that.
I agree.
It's stopping everybody. And until that price goes back down, I mean, I think, sure, we need to look for better ways of making more money and getting things going. But I don't think this is the item, but I think it's good to talk about it.
That's what this is for tonight.
Yeah.
Mr. Emil.
I think New Mexico is affecting the marijuana industry here, but it's like a new puppy.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to go check it out, see what's going on, and when everything new happens, it affects another sector. And I do believe we're gonna see a lull, but I think it's gonna come back. I think we will see a spike after a little while. And I don't know that we'll get back to where we are. I think we will lose some dispensaries, but I think it's gonna come back stronger than people anticipate.
I agree.
Anybody else have anything to say? on this particular subject.
I have a request.
Go ahead.
So could we request that the city brings in an economic advisor?
Nope,
No?
not on this meeting.
Well, down the road.
Yeah, you can, maybe you can.
So
put
that
on
way
a-
we can
and
try
ask Victor.
and find our
Ask
next.
Victor, we can have, staff.
Yeah, our
Uh,
next,
Yeah, have staff, if you want something like that on staff, I'd advise you to talk to Victor
okay.
a little bit, and,
Because if the consumption club isn't the next move, and I'm not saying that it is or isn't, the only thing I'm saying is that we better figure it out. There has to be a next move. You know, there just has to be.
don't you agree?
That's all I got.
Anybody else, anything else just on this subject?
Can I close with a couple points? One thing, in terms of law enforcement, alcohol is a far more significant need to be managed than weed. I mean, stoned people don't get belligerent, and they don't get DWIs. So the enforcement part of that would not be a problem. Our New Mexico, right now, yes, Tony's right. Right now, we do have a break. New Mexico is much higher than our weed, and also they capped it at the THC level, so we can get a higher quality weed here, and that's important to the consumer. Tony, even more important than gasoline, probably. So for the time being, we do have a little bit of a hold on our 36 million or whatever we're pulling in, but that's going to go down. And we're just talking about giving people the opportunity to create and, to come up with creative ways. We will set parameters, and then they will operate within them, and they will come up with creative ways. It's free enterprise. We don't have to come up with. We just have to come up with, we don't want it in smells, we don't, the things that we want, and then it will take care of itself. So I think that we should, if we can continue to help to nudge this forward along smoothly, I think it would be a big windfall for the city. Sorry.
Anybody
That's
else?
my opinion.
Anybody else on the subject?
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
Can Chief Glorioso be asked to give his opinion on?
Sure. Anybody in law enforcement can be asked.
How does that go about?
Well, right now, this is just a discussion. When it comes up, I think maybe Victor, maybe you can answer that at another time.
Yeah, we definitely could have him.
He can look into that.
Yeah. If you're going to continue the discussion, then maybe. But if not, if you think that it's going to somehow go to
We're not going
council down the road.
Basically, this is just a discussion
Yeah.
tonight. We can't forward nothing to the city. Period.
Right.
So, just.
That's a
just
question
have
that you
So-
have to keep.
Okay, so when these discussions happen, then you, at a later date, decide if you want to move it on to city council?
Well,
Is that how it works?
yeah. Well, basically, it'll be going to probably Les Downs, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Les Downs will give us some information on which way.
They would want your feedback.
Right. Nothing else? We'll go on to ADUs, assisted dwelling units. Mr. Norris, I'm going to let you talk first. Mr. Norris,
Yeah.
assisted dwelling units. I'm going to let you talk first.
Accessory dwelling units. Okay, I'm going to start my discussion on the accessory dwelling units with, my brother lives in a nice housing development, but they are responsible for the roads. And currently they're going to have to pay a $30,000 assessment per home to repave their roads. Now, in our scenario, you could call upon the city to have to repave your road. So the infrastructure of supporting developments that are far from the inside of town costs the city significant money in terms of roads, electricity, transporting of gas, all utilities, all that stuff. It's far more economical for the city to infill and develop within that. And the reason that people haven't done that is because it's not economically viable to build a single family dwelling when you're infilling in a lot. So what do? We get empty lots. So if we wanted to change that and maybe get where people would come in and develop lots, ADUs could be a way that we could do that. And it would help the city because it's cheaper for us to do it and it increases revenue, and they're not a bad thing. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Marano.
I thought we had basically figured that we wanted to get the prices down on the applications to where people could actually get them going, you know, if they wanted to do one. That way they wouldn't have to come up with that big buck. I forget how much it was, $1,200 or something like that. Huh?
Those thousands of dollars.
Yeah, you know, and I thought we were supposed to go to somebody was supposed to go to the city council and see if they could get that.
Okay,
Hang on.
grab everybody a copy of the fees real quick, so,
Sure.
because I think you guys are gonna discuss that,
Sure.
right?
And so, if we have that in place, I think we'd have the ADUs available for anybody that wants to do them.
John?
Well, I agree with Tony. I thought we were talking about reducing the fees so that people could apply for it without having to pay the big hefty fees and see if they can get the variance. It seems like the code is a place for people to build ADUs, but it's restricted to see if you can get the variance because of the cost. So that's why nobody's applying apparently.
Mr. Spain?
Okay, I agree. I thought that we also added to make the fees payable upon approval of the variance instead of upfront. Thank you, sir. But I've actually done some research and been researching these things on the internet, and I don't want to lean towards either way, because I'm still for the ADUs, but we really have to put the control into the citizens' hands that live in the areas where we're talking about this going in, because some of these are absolute horror stories.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched some of this stuff on the internet, and we absolutely do not want this in our neighborhoods. That now, there's other sides of this that it's amazing and it all works out good and everybody's happy. We just have to find because if we're going to invite people into our town and say, hey, come to our festival, but there's no place for them to stay, I mean, what are we going to do? They're going to leave by midday so that they can make it to Pueblo where there's a hotel. So we're going to have to find a way to make more housing, whether it's through the ADUs or the multi-dwelling unit or new builds. One way or another, if we're going to have tourism, we're going to have rooms. That's just all there is to it. Or lots of tents, I guess. That's all I got.
Mr. Coker?
I don't have anything right now.
Ms. Rollo? I think you're in a position to give a lot of information right here.
Well, they touched on several different things. The one thing that this gentleman talked about was, it sounded to me like we have a need for hotel rooms. There's a difference between having guests staying overnight in short-term rentals and having a community in a housing development.
Exactly.
So if we need hotel rooms, or do we need houses for people to live in and neighborhoods? hotels don't belong in a neighborhood.
I agree.
So if we need places for tourists, then we need to be talking about hotel space. Maybe downtown with the things that were talked about last week or last meeting,
Right.
you know, developing the downtown area. But there's still many lots available, infill lots. And the cost to do a new construction home on an infill lot where utilities are available is no different than building an ADU. You still have to have engineering, you still have to have an architect, you still have to hook up to utilities. So why are people not building on their single family lots that are already ready and available? That's an economic question. We have a bad supply chain right now. The cost of construction is through the roof, and that's not gonna be any less for an ADU. So the reason I believe that people aren't applying is a combination of these fees and the simple economic cost. That's my opinion.
I
Thank
think
you.
also, I'd like to say, and we have to be careful that we don't destroy our historical preservation, okay? Right now, a lot of people come in my restaurant and they said, this is a gorgeous city. It's beautiful. But if we're not careful with these ADUs, we could destroy a lot.
I'll agree with that statement that Mr. Marano said. And in our comprehensive plan, there's a place. If anybody has that comprehensive plan and you don't have one, Victor can find you.
Do we get?
It's in the orange.
Okay.
It's in the orange area in the comprehensive plan where you can put these houses. We already have that. This has a lot to do with it, yes. The cost of building right now that you're talking about, yes. Everything. Today, it's almost impossible to keep up daily of all the stuff that's going up, especially when you own a business like mine. I get called over there all the time. Well, this here's going up. What are you going to do here? Huh. What are you going to do there? From the time a person starts a house, talk to anyone. Talk to Mr. Baca. He's building a few. He's trying to cut wherever he wants and give a quality house.
Still turn profit.
Right, still turn profit. Go ahead, Chris.
I attended the conference on the housing, and over I heard from developers that it's not cost effective to build a house right now. I hear it from people that come in on the street. They said that the only option they have right now is modular homes. So I think we need to change with the times. I know it's not something that we would even consider, but right now we need, times are dire, and we've got to have some kind of relief for these developers and home builders.
And I'm going to go back again. That's in the comp plan. There's a place in the comp plan for that.
Yeah, modulars are allowed.
Yes, but they keep going back to the 612 roof pitch and how much cost is added to a modular home when they have to put that roof pitch on.
Well, we just gave a variance here a while back to a 512.
Yeah.
Mr. Marano can talk about that. We went over and over on that.
And right now, Champion Homes is 9 months behind. In other words, if you ordered one today, you won't get it 9 months from now.
Maybe.
Huh?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Based off their supply.
So it's just a vicious circle that we're going through right now. And it's not any difference in 1980 when I built my home. Interest rates were 17%. Nobody could build because they couldn't afford to build. Okay. This trend is just going into that circle, and I hope we can get out of it. I hope someday that gas controls a lot of things.
Anybody else as far as that?
Just a quick question.
Sure.
What fees here do you have to pay to be considered for an ADU?
Yeah, 700.
That's it?
Yeah,
So
for a
last time-
variance.
For a variance.
Last time we spoke, it was over $1,000, like $1,200-$1,300 to get a variance, or to at least apply for a variance on an ADU.
No, 700.
700?
No,
Say-
I think that we were over 1,200.
Was that over?
$1,200?
Yeah. I think that's what they said last time. It was over 1,200 by the time they applied for everything.
Maybe we were including that in permits, I'm not sure.
I think that it was with permits
Could've been.
and surveys.
Yeah, could have been.
It could be rezoning, but that's not really included in the building of a building.
I'm gonna keep this list handy. I never understood that to build the barnuminium, they rezoned that land before they put in the barnuminium. That's a $1,400 application for them to come in front of us. That's amazing.
And it's not guaranteed. I liked your comment about maybe they could pay the fees
After it's
upon
approved,
acceptance.
I mean, we gotta do something.
But doesn't the staff still have?
Go ahead, Chris, continue.
Oh, I liked Chris Spain's comment. If maybe if we made it
Actually,
a fire sale, no, adjustment to the fees to where if planning and zoning had to hear it and it didn't pass, then you don't have to pay that fee. Maybe that would bring more people in, and it didn't have to be permanent. We could change it back when the economy goes back to a normal pace.
You know, maybe even we could try and start up some kind of grant through the city for new builds, you know, to help cover some of the cost. I mean,
Some
even if we
incentives.
just give them a tax break, you know, at Lowe's, man, I go shop at Lowe's because they give me a tax break. I don't even go to Home Depot no more. You know, so and we're just, yeah, we're just talking about a little over 10%, man. The only thing they do is buy me a new tool at the end of the day. On a new home build, a 10% rate would be an amazing deal. You know, maybe we could look into something like that to get the economy.
And it all comes back to, and staff, your staff over there, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Staff spends a lot of time,
Yeah.
and that's money. Comes back to money there.
I think the reason why these are so expensive is because these prices were based off Carrie McCool's fees. And since we're not using Carrie McCool anymore,
Right.
I think maybe giving an incentive with some of these costs would be good.
I think maybe that was the motion, was that we could see if these fees could be worked with a little
Right.
bit, since
Yeah.
Miss McCool wasn't here no more.
Right.
I have a question, Victor. When somebody applies for a variance, like say they wanted to build an ADU, are they required at that point to already have spent money on doing plans, you know, engineering?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's the
Yeah,
other
because they have
thing.
to turn all that stuff in.
So you could take this variance fee down, and they're still gonna have to spend a lot of money before,
Just to be able to
just to
Plans,
walk,
plans, yeah.
just to bring it in the door, yeah.
That's just the name of the animal, though. That's
Right.
just the way it works.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, that's, you know, everything means so much in the city. Just a water drainage plan, if it's done the wrong way, could totally mess up someone's neighborhood.
So
And that-
I'm thinking that it's
That
probably
comes back,
not that.
I'll bring that back to the ADUs.
Yeah.
In low-density residential areas, my God.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's no parking.
No parking.
You wanna flood that area where you got people in there, it's been there for a long time. You wanna flood that area and completely change the structure of that neighborhood? I don't think so.
That was one of the many problems that I saw in my research, was the overflooding of traffic, and also the adding of a multi-family dwelling into the middle of a neighborhood. They brought up the fact that businesses don't belong in home areas, and that was one of their arguments against the bed and breakfast that I found, was that this is a business, it needs to be with other businesses, not in the middle of the neighborhood, making problem with people that are trying to just live. So, you know, I think all of us should just search on the internet on YouTube under multi-dwelling unit nightmares, and you'll see more than you ever wanted to see.
Go ahead.
Have you guys
Hey,
looked at the map, the zoning map that they have down at City Hall where it shows the different areas where it's zoned medium density, where you can see it? Maybe that's an area that you guys could consider making some changes to your ADUs, you know, in the.
What's allowed where?
Right, you know, maybe leave single family housing out of it and focus on your medium density.
Density residential.
Exactly.
Mhm. And the map, I went down and bought one and have it in my office so I can look at it every day. And I think if you really just look at it, it gives you a different perspective on some ideas to make people that want to have ADUs happy, but still protect the single family,
Right.
low density residential zoning.
That's basically what I'm trying to talk about too.
I think that's a great idea.
Anybody else as far as
Mr. Norris.
Mr.
Yeah,
Morris?
if we're talking about taking tours, I think one of the best examples I've seen of ADUs, drive up our Colorado Street. There are multiple old houses that have multiple people living in them. You know, they're divided up into ADUs in one form or another. The pristine nature of the neighborhood, Colorado Avenue, is still maintained. There is not a traffic issue. But although you can see there are more cars, but you know, that's an example of we're doing it right here in our own town, but we're not letting that continue on. So anyway, take a drive up Colorado. Have a look. It maintains that integrity, and yet it also has lots of the ADUs that we're talking about. So anyway, they will build it if we let them.
Anybody else? Okay, I guess if anybody is, some of us better look at that map.
Can we?
We could get you guys a copy.
I was gonna say,
How
get a
big
copy
is,
at least.
how big? It's
Mine's a
pretty,
hole on the wall.
the one that we have in Chris's office?
Not the one, I wanted that one, but I couldn't get that one, so I went over to the mapping department and they printed me one. It was like $16.
Can we get one that's like what you have?
Yeah, but it's not totally up to date,
Okay.
but
It's a
I
lot
can-
better to read
I
than the
can
one
get
I have.
copies, color copies of that made. Or how about if I get the most up-to-date map?
Especially the one that have the comp plan on it. Some of the comp plan on it.
They have the ordinances on
Okay.
them.
Especially in the medium density residential that you're talking about. Okay. Well, I think we've talked about the fees.
I think what we can do too is, can we send them a copy of that digital copy that we have? Or
I can
where they
send
just
the
type in
link.
the address?
That's the best one,
Yeah,
is
That's
We could send
the
it to
one
you
with
guys.
the zoning, and then it links to the assessor's office. I've asked them multiple times if we could get that updated.
It's not official, but it
Yeah,
was
it's
done
not
by Karen.
live.
It was done by Karen McCool's office, so as long as we keep it like just internal.
Is that
right. Okay.
is that the one
That would be the
being
easiest.
followed though? Is that the one that
Yeah, it's the one being followed.
okay?
But we just never released it, so it's not live.
It's hush hush.
Right.
Top secret.
That would be the easiest to share with everyone, is the link to the zoning map. That way you don't have to put it up on your wall or.
If that's
I'm
something
not
you guys
opposed to
want.
that.
That'd be great.
To the website or the actual
Website.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, and it would be easier instead of us trying to get a hard copy.
And all you
down
do is
here.
just type
Maybe
in
just
the-
get something to put on an overhead or
Yeah.
up here on the TVs. That way we can see it.
And all you do is just
Right.
type in the address and it
Yeah.
brings it to what
The link.
Yeah.
residential or your.
I use it
zoning.
every day, and it's very helpful. And if that's not enough, then we can provide paper maps.
Gotcha.
Just let me know.
Anything else that staff would like to bring forward? Anybody else?
I have one little thing.
Go ahead.
So I spoke about, and I was supposed to get some documentation on some of the, what's happening in the other parts of the state, up north, with some of these counties trying to go all green, using more, electric and giving enticement. So I didn't get all my information. I am still gathering that. I do believe what's happening. I know rates are going to start changing and all that, but I feel very strong that it would be in the city's best interest to start looking at incentives. What if we're buying power, we're doing whatever, however all this works. That's maybe where I'm a little not quite of understanding, but it is inevitable. It is inevitable on what's going to happen. Now, it could take up 20 years before it gets here, but it's going to happen. And I do believe that it would be in our best interest to kind of look into that. Is there a way that the city can give incentives? So if somebody's building new homes and that they're wanting, they don't want to go gas. I see it all over the place in the outskirts. People are thinking, well, I'm going to do this because I'm going to go solar, right? Because I'm going to go solar, and then now the solar, if people are getting solar here in town, are they getting an incentive?
No.
No. Why are we not looking at that? In other places, people are getting incentives for having all this solar. They're getting money taken off. I mean, so that's what I'm talking about. We have to look at it in this bigger realm. People that want to add solar to their houses, they're doing it for a reason, to save themselves money. Yeah, there's places that are going to put it in for free or whatever, but it's inevitable. It's coming. It's coming real soon. We definitely need to look into some of this stuff.
If the city is not equipped to receive power back from those individuals, because there's a surplus of electricity
Correct.
always made. If the city isn't equipped to receive that back from those clients, they actually have to install a dead man switch and a one-way switch that only allow power to travel one way on the line in order to even have solar and the city electric on the same house. So there's not a grant. There's actually a extra money charge that you have to pay.
Well, I guess
in town.
I'm just saying, because a lot of what I see is in the outskirts.
The outskirts, as long as you're not hooked up to the city lines, then you don't have to have that dead man switch that stops it from going backwards. Or if the city is able to take your surplus power and they actually give you credit back for it, then you don't have to have it. But in most cities, they can't receive power that way.
They ain't equipped.
They're not equipped, so they make you put this extra switch in that will actually stop the power. The city's power goes out, your generator kicks on. There's nothing stopping that power going back down that line to get that lineman that's trying
Right.
to put the power line back up.
Gotcha.
So you have to have that dead man switch in there to stop it.
It's even the same way with the generator.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of people have generators and they don't realize they have to have a special switch.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that guy working on the power line, you're going to produce it, it's going to go down that power line electrically.
Yeah, it'll get them.
So solar's really new to our community, though, as far as permitting.
Oh,
and,
no, for sure, and
yeah.
I get all that.
So it's all new to us. So we're not like 100. We're barely figuring out how to permit it.
And I'm like the solar, I'm not as big on. I see it happening out here. People are trying to just be more independent and all that.
Right.
But I think where my biggest thing comes from is I'm going to talk in my realm for a second, if I can do that, right? So if I can go in there and I could put this one big system in for this house, and it's, when you apply, you have a 60 amp service, and it's just that, or a 60 amp disconnect, and you're using, 48.5 amps to operate that air conditioner, right? And it's AC power. Now, we have equipment out there in the world that you're going to run AC power to that equipment, but the equipment has boards and special things in there that convert all this power to DC power. So yeah, you're going to run, let's say, a 40 amp circuit to it, but its draw is minimal. A condenser on one of these pieces of equipment will, an operating cost can cost as much as running and this is cooling your house, cost as much as running 4 or 5 ceiling fans, 115 volt ceiling fans. And that's because everything is converted. Items are converted to DC power. All the motors are DC power. Every little thing is, majority of it is DC powered. There's boards that convert things to a mild 3-phase, which is, so I guess where I was going in the very beginning when I brought this up is there's towns out there that they're giving huge discounts, or let's just say, what's the word I'm looking for? So you get
Incentives.
yes, from your power companies, right? So you put this in there, we're going to give you a
Power credits.
San Isabel does.
Power credit.
yeah, right. Well, there's places out there that are doing like $20,000 because it's going to cost these people big money to do that to their house. So it's a big incentive that
Right.
the city or the power grid is going to give them. Well, Trinidad's its own power grid. That's the stuff that I'm kind of talking about, because that stuff is here.
Like San
And-
Isabel
and-
gives 0 interest loans for replacing your appliances and whatnot.
Years back, San Isabel was giving away free electric water heaters. Free water heaters because they're energy efficient, yada, yada, yada. You sign up, you get your name, you get a free water heater. And
Shoot, can I have two?
But, and that's because why? Because we're getting into, what's energy conserving, right? They're making heat pumps out there that will it'll take away a hot water heater. You don't have to run gas to it. You don't have to run electric to it. It's tied in with your heating and cooling system, which is
Furnace, yeah.
all electric, not like let's say Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi, what I do know is they're under test right now. It's operational. It's been there for over a year. It most likely is going to go out there. Been running a heat pump sourced water heater, and it's been doing great. This guy lives up 9,000 foot elevation is where they're testing the product. So that's high. Heat pumps usually decline, because up there, they're going to be subdued to very cold temperatures, and heat pumps normally would not operate in those kind of temperatures. The equipment nowadays can produce in that kind of temperature. So again, you can heat and cool a house, you can do your hot water, and it's not going to it'll cost you a small fortune to get all this put into your house, but that's the things that I want to attack. What can we do as a city to give credit or incentive to get these people to do that kind of stuff? Knowing that maybe not so much in town, but when you look at the rest of the town, we don't have enough pump stations or whatever to get the gas from here to there, and so we have depleted. If we start pushing some of these items out there, are we still in the same boat? We have it in water, we have it in gas. So that's why it's important to me that I think we at least as a city, we look at these items. I will get literature, I will bring to you. I will probably have a gentleman come down that can talk with much experience with who talks at the state level, who talks at more than just one state. I had a small communication with him, so would he be willing? Yes. So I'm going to gather some more data. I'm going to bring it to the table. It's just something that I think it's kind of important.
Appreciate that.
A neighborhood geothermal field would be awesome,
For sure.
where multi-houses could tap into a geothermal field. That would be, this is what stuff.
Geothermal is super.
Exactly.
Sammy, just let us know when you're gonna invite
Okay.
him to come down. Even if it's on video, if you can't make it down here, we can
Do okay.
Zoom or something.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for letting me talk. Thank you.
Richard, anybody else before we got a motion to close the work session?
Motion to close work session.
Second. Roll call.
Act like I don't know who's here. Armijo,
Yes.
Coker,
Yes.
Moderato,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Spain,
Yes, sir.
Rollo,
Yeah.
and Leone.
Yes.
Whoa, that's loud.
Thank you all commissioners. A little bit longer than we thought,
Thanks,
but
John.
we got
See you
some
next
things
time.
said.
Hopefully we'll see you here.
I don't think I can make that dinner.
Oh, come
I think
on.
it's too late.
All the signatures.
If you got done early, we're gonna go have some ribeye, and I said, I'll go with you.